The Academy's docking bay was alive with sound and motion. Engines roared as a transport shuttle lowered itself onto the glowing landing pad. Steam hissed from the vents, and the tall silhouettes of alien cadets shifted restlessly, waiting to see who would step out. The Academy was not an ordinary school. It was the heart of the Galactic Union's training, a place where the strongest cadets of every world came to prove themselves. Here, weakness was not forgiven, and survival was not guaranteed. From the shuttle doors, a small figure appeared. A human girl, dressed in the plain gray uniform of a cadet, stepped forward with calm eyes. Around her, whispers spread like a wave. Some aliens laughed in disbelief. Others exchanged sharp glances. A few tilted their heads, their antennae twitching with interest. Humans were rare here. Most cadets had only heard rumors about them. Rumors that Earth was not a safe planet, but a nightmare world. She kept walking, not showing fear. Her boots struck the metal floor with steady rhythm, each step a quiet act of defiance. She knew eyes were on her, but she refused to shrink beneath them. Inside, her heart pounded faster, not from weakness but from determination. The new cadets were guided to the medical bay. It was a wide, sterile room filled with humming machines and glowing panels. At the center stood the scanner, a towering device shaped like a circular arch, humming with power. Every cadet had to pass through it. The scanner read pulse, oxygen levels, neural activity, and even stress resistance. No one could cheat it. If you were weak, the scanner would reveal it. One by one, cadets entered. Green lights flashed, steady beeps confirmed normal readings, and the alien medic waved them through. Cleared, he repeated, voice flat and cold. Then came the human girl's turn. She stepped forward, her back straight, her face calm. The arch lit up as she walked beneath it. The soft hum filled the room, and the circle of light moved slowly from her head down to her feet. First, nothing seemed unusual. Then the beeping slowed. The lights flickered from green to yellow. A strange tone cut through the silence, sharper than before. The medic frowned, leaning toward the console. On the screen appeared a message. Warning. Subject's heartbeat incompatible with survival. A ripple of shock spread through the room. Cadets turned their heads, their voices rising in whispers. What does it mean? Is she dying? No, another hissed. The machine says she shouldn't be alive at all. The medic tapped the screen again, resetting the scan. The circle of light repeated its motion, humming louder, almost impatient. Again, the same result flashed across the console. Survival impossible. Subject's vitals contradict life. The medic's silver eyes narrowed. His steady hands trembled slightly as he whispered, "This cannot be correct." The girl stood still inside the scanner. Her chest rose and fell with calm breaths, her heartbeat steady. She could feel the weight of every stare in the room, yet she did not flinch. The aliens stepped back, fear and disbelief on their faces. A scaled cadet muttered under his breath, "Machines do not lie. If it says she is not alive, then what is she?" Another cadet whispered a word most had only heard in legends, Deathworlder. The word froze the room. Deathworlds were the most hostile planets known to the Union. Places filled with endless predators, storms that tore cities apart, and environments where only the strongest life could exist. For most cadets, Deathworlds were horror stories told in childhood. To claim a human came from one, it was unthinkable. The medic cleared his throat. Cadet, step forward. His voice was colder now, touched with unease. She obeyed, leaving the scanner behind. The machine let out one final beep as if refusing to let her go, its screen flashing again. Impossible survival. Further examination required. She joined the line of cadets once more, feeling the air heavy with silence. Some avoided her, stepping back as though she carried some hidden disease. Others stared with sharp curiosity, unable to look away. She met none of their eyes, but inside, she felt the fire growing stronger. The instructors watching from above spoke quietly to each other. One leaned toward the screen showing her scan and said, "The system does not make mistakes. If she truly comes from Earth, then perhaps the stories are true. The girl clenched her fists. She knew this was only the beginning. She would be tested, doubted, and perhaps hated. But she also knew one truth that no machine could erase. She was alive. Alive in a place where no one believed she could exist. The scanner's warning echoed in every cadet's mind like a ghostly whisper. How can an Earth cadet still be alive? And deep inside, she promised herself. Soon, they would all find out. The human girl had barely left the scanner when the whispers began to spread like wildfire. The long corridors of the academy were alive with murmurs. Groups of alien cadets huddled together, their eyes darting toward her as she walked past. No one tried to hide it. Her presence had become the only topic. She kept her pace steady, but her ears caught fragments of their words. She should be dead. The scanner doesn't lie. She's Earthborn. Some of the voices were filled with disbelief, others with fear, and some with open contempt. To them, she was not just another cadet. She was a puzzle, an error in the system, maybe even a threat. At the meal hall, where new cadets gathered for their first supper, the tension only grew stronger. The hall was vast, filled with long tables lined with different species. Some ate with claws, some with thin fingers, others with long tongues. But all of them paused when the human girl entered. She carried her tray of food calmly and looked for a place to sit. An insectoid cadet whispered to his group, his mandibles clicking. Look at her skin. Too soft. No armor. How does she live? A reptilian cadet hissed in reply. That's the point. The machine said she shouldn't. She sat alone at the edge of a table. She didn't mind silence, but the atmosphere pressed against her like a weight. Her hand tightened around the utensil, though her face remained calm. She had grown up on Earth. She knew what it felt like to be doubted. Across the hall, a group of older cadets leaned together, their voices sharp and mocking. Maybe she bribed her way here, one said. No, another replied with a dark laugh. Machines can't be bribed. She is hiding something. The word Deathworlder echoed again, passed from one group to another. For many, it was a word filled with both fascination and dread. Deathworlders were said to have grown strong because their worlds forced them to survive against impossible odds. Some cadets believed such stories were exaggerated. Now, they weren't so sure. One brave alien cadet approached her table. He was tall, with gray skin and glowing yellow eyes. His posture was confident, but his voice trembled slightly. Human, he said, loud enough for others to hear. Tell us, how can you be alive if the scanner says you should not? The hall went quiet. Every ear turned toward her. She looked up slowly, meeting his stare. Her voice was calm, almost too calm for the situation. I'm alive because I was born on Earth, she said simply. What your machine cannot understand is normal for us. Her words carried no boast, no anger, just truth. Yet that truth only deepened the tension. Some cadets laughed nervously, others shook their heads. A few leaned back, their eyes wide, as if she had admitted to being something unnatural. The gray-skinned cadet frowned. So it is true. You are a Deathworlder. The whispers flared again. Some looked at her with respect now, others with disgust. But all of them looked at her differently. Later that night, in the dormitories, the talk had not stopped. In every corner of the sleeping halls, voices rose. She doesn't belong here. She might be stronger than all of us. What if she's dangerous? She lay on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Her body was still, but her mind was sharp and alert. She could feel their fear pressing down on her. But she had not come here for their approval. She had come to prove herself. Outside the dormitory window, the alien night sky stretched wide, filled with stars. She thought of Earth, its storms, its predators, its chaos. She thought of the heat of deserts, the roar of oceans, the bite of winters. Earth had taught her one lesson: survive no matter what. If these cadets feared her now, she knew it was only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring tests, and tests would bring truth. They would see with their own eyes what it meant to be from Earth. In the shadows of the dorm, Two cadets whispered to each other. If she can survive what no one else can, then maybe she isn't a mistake. Maybe she's something worse. The words carried like smoke in the air, lingering long after they had stopped speaking. The academy had seen many strange cadets over the years. But tonight, one thing was certain: none had arrived like the human girl. And though she lay silent, eyes fixed on the stars above, she could feel the weight of destiny pressing closer. The scanner's echo would not leave their minds. How can an Earth cadet still be alive? They did not know it yet, but soon they would all learn the answer. The academy never trusted rumors alone. Every detail was recorded, every scan was stored, and every irregularity was passed to the instructors. That night, while the cadets tried to sleep in their dorms, the real discussion took place high above them in the administrative tower. The medical base scanner had already uploaded the strange results. On the glowing screens of the council chamber, the data shimmered in red and gold lines. A heartbeat too strong, organs showing stress resistance, muscles capable of absorbing shocks that would cripple other cadets. Numbers scrolled endlessly, none of them fitting the database of known physiology. 3 instructors leaned over the display. One was a tall, blue-skinned officer with a sharp crest on his head. His voice was sharp too, filled with suspicion. These readings are false. The machine must have malfunctioned. Another instructor, older and calmer, shook his head. The scanner has no record of error in 30 years. If it says she shouldn't be alive, then we must ask why she is. The third, a gray-furred alien with narrow eyes, tapped a claw against the screen. Her bones, he muttered, denser than our strongest species. Her heartbeat, slower under stress, faster when calm. That is the opposite of normal life signs. The room grew heavy with silence. Then the older instructor whispered the word all 3 were afraid to say: Earthborn. The crest-headed officer spat the word back like an insult. If that is true, she does not belong here. We cannot allow a Deathworlder in our program. It is dangerous. But the gray-furred one narrowed his eyes and leaned closer. Or, it is an opportunity. If she can survive what others cannot, perhaps the academy will learn something from her. Or perhaps she will break, and then we will know the stories were exaggerated. The older instructor sighed and closed the report with a flick of his hand. Either way, we must watch her closely. Do not let her know we are studying her. For now, she is just another cadet. But she was not just another cadet. The next morning, the human girl walked through the training fields. The air smelled of metal and alien dust, the ground vibrating from machines lifting weights larger than starships. She tried to focus on the drills, but she felt the stares again. Every cadet who looked at her now carried the whispers from last night in their eyes. As she jogged across the yard, 2 cadets moved out of her path. One hissed under his breath. The scanner said she's impossible. The other nodded quickly, as if agreeing would keep him safe. She ignored them, but her chest tightened. She knew the academy wasn't a place for comfort. She had expected tests, rivalries, and even failure. But she had not expected to be treated like something that should not exist. During the midday break, she slipped into a quiet corner near the data terminals. Screens glowed with the records of past cadets, statistics, achievements, failures. She knew her own file was locked from her access, but curiosity burned inside her. What had the machine really seen? She touched the console, but before she could search, a shadow fell over her. It was the gray-skinned medic from the day before. His eyes were unreadable as he looked at her. "Cadet," he said softly, "do not trouble yourself with files you cannot open." Her hand froze above the console. She looked up at him, calm but steady. "I only wanted to know what it saw." The medic studied her for a long moment. Then he leaned closer and whispered so no one else could hear. "The machine does not lie. It believes you are living when no one should. That is all you need to know." She held his stare, refusing to show fear. But inside, his words burned into her mind. Living when no one should. That night, when the dorm grew quiet again, a small team of instructors gathered around the hidden report once more. This time, the file had grown longer. The machine had automatically tracked her entire day. Her heart rate during drills, her body's ability to recover after running, the strange way her pulse grew stronger during exhaustion instead of weaker. One line of text blinked on the screen. Subject: Earth Cadet. Status: alive. Condition: incompatible with Academy survival models. The instructors exchanged looks. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, the older one said, "Tomorrow we test her further. Quietly. Let the other cadets believe it is a normal challenge." They nodded in agreement. The hidden report was sealed again, locked away from every cadet's eyes. But even sealed files could not stop the spread of fear. In the halls below, the cadets whispered in their bunks. The instructors are watching her. The scanner still doesn't believe she should be alive. Maybe Earth is worse than all the legends. The human girl lay awake, listening without turning her head. She had heard whispers before back on Earth. She had heard doubt and mockery. But here it was different. Here the whispers carried fear. And sometimes, fear was more dangerous than hate. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, just loud enough for her own heart to hear. "Let them fear. Fear will keep them from seeing me clearly. And that will be my chance." Above her, the hidden report pulsed with unanswered questions. The machine had spoken, and its voice still lingered in the minds of those who read it. How can an Earth cadet still be alive? The next day, the Academy grounds were filled with tension. The instructors announced that all new cadets would face their first survival trial. It was presented as routine, something every generation had to complete. But hidden beneath their calm words was a sharper intent. This test was not only for the cadets, it was for the human girl. The instructors wanted answers, and the scanner's warnings had made them restless. The cadets gathered before the training dome, a massive structure made of shifting metal plates. It could simulate any environment. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, flooded jungles, or empty voids. The dome had broken cadets before, exposing weakness where they thought there was none. The human girl stood at the back of the line, listening to the briefing. Inside, an instructor explained, "The environment will change without warning. Your task is simple: endure, adapt, survive." Murmurs spread through the ranks. Endurance tests were feared, even by cadets from hardy species. The alien to her left whispered, "This will kill her." The one to her right hissed, "She'll never last 5 minutes." She kept her eyes on the dome. Her face showed no fear, but her chest rose with slow, steady breaths. She remembered Earth's storms that had ripped trees from the ground, the nights of freezing cold that forced her family to huddle by fires, the sudden floods that swallowed villages whole. Compared to that, what could a machine create that she hadn't already seen? When her turn came, she stepped forward. The dome doors closed behind her with a heavy clang. Instantly, the air grew hot, so hot it burned her lungs. The floor beneath her feet shimmered into sand, glowing under a searing sun. The sound of insects buzzed in the distance. She knelt quickly, scooping the sand in her hand. It was scorching, but she didn't flinch. She wrapped her sleeve around her head to block the heat, then started moving. Every step sank deep into the endless dunes. High above, in the observation room, instructors watched silently. Other cadets crowded the glass windows, whispering to each other. They saw her walk across the desert calmly, while the heat sensors climbed higher and higher. One instructor frowned. "Her heartbeat is slowing, not rising." "That's not possible," another muttered. "Every cadet spikes under stress. She's reversing the pattern." Minutes passed. The dome shifted. The desert dissolved into icy mountains. Snow crashed down from above, and the air stabbed like knives in her lungs. Her breath frosted instantly, and winds tore at her uniform. The cadets watching laughed cruelly. Now she will break. But the girl pulled her jacket tighter, crouched low, and pressed forward. Her body shook, but her eyes were sharp. She remembered nights on Earth when her breath froze in the air, when she woke up buried under snow but still alive. She pushed forward step by heavy step. In the dome's control room, the instructors leaned closer to the screens. The scanner beeped rapidly, trying to calculate her condition. Temperature tolerance beyond predictions, the medic reported. Her body is adapting faster than expected. The dome shifted again. The mountains melted into a flooded jungle. Water rose quickly, thick vines tangling around her legs. Strange shadows moved beneath the surface. She waded forward, chest deep, keeping her eyes alert. The smell of rot filled her nose, but she kept her mouth closed, conserving breath. From the viewing platform, some cadets no longer mocked. Their laughter had died. Now they watched with silent unease. Every environment meant to crush her only seemed to draw out her strength. Finally, the dome activated its last sequence. The jungle vanished, replaced by total darkness. No ground, no air, just vacuum. For a brief second, her body screamed, lungs burning, skin freezing. But she held still, calm as stone. Her heartbeat steady even as alarms blared in the control room. One instructor slammed his fist on the console. Enough! Shut it down before she dies. The dome's systems ended the simulation. Air rushed back, gravity returned, and the floor solidified under her feet. She fell to her knees, gasping once, then pushed herself upright. Her chest heaved, but her eyes burned with life. She was still standing. The doors opened. She walked out, sweat-drenched, frost clinging to her sleeves, her body covered in dust. The watching cadets stepped back in silence, unsure whether to fear her or admire her. The instructors whispered among themselves. The scanner was right. She does not survive by chance. She survives because her world forged her this way. The human girl stood before them, silent, unshaken. Inside, her heart whispered the same truth she had always known. Earth does not raise the weak. It raises survivors. And though the test was over, the message was clear. She was no mistake. She was proof. Proof that an Earth cadet could endure what no one else dared face. The Academy had wanted answers. Now it had them. The survival test had ended, but the Academy was far from satisfied. The instructors had seen her endure heat, cold, water, and even the vacuum of space. The scanner kept insisting she should not be alive, yet she walked out of the dome stronger than when she went in. To some, it was proof of her strength. To others, it was a threat. That evening, the senior cadets gathered in their own hall. These were not beginners, but seasoned trainees who had already survived years of grueling lessons. They had pride, status, and reputations. And now, a rumor was spreading that a human girl had outlasted the Academy's hardest trial. She makes us look weak, one of them said, his voice low but filled with venom. She's only been here for days, another snapped. And already the instructors are watching her. If she rises higher, what does that make us? There was silence. Then one of them smiled cruelly. Then we will test her ourselves. The next morning, the human girl entered the training yard. The sky was pale with morning light, and the sound of drills echoed from every corner. She thought the day would be ordinary physical endurance, combat training, study of galactic law. But as she stepped onto the grounds, she felt the eyes again. This time they were sharper, heavier. A group of senior cadets stood waiting, tall and confident. Their leader, a broad-shouldered reptilian with scales like polished stone, stepped forward. "Earthborn," he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yesterday you survived the dome. But survival is not strength. Survival is not victory. We challenge you, combat here and now." The younger cadets froze. A challenge from seniors was rare, dangerous, and usually unfair. The human girl stood still, her hands relaxed at her sides. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded once. "I accept." A murmur swept through the yard. Some cadets gasped, others smirked. The reptilian leader grinned, his sharp teeth catching the light. "Good," he growled. "Then let us see if Earthblood is as strong as the stories say." The instructors didn't stop it. They watched silently from the edge, their expressions unreadable. Maybe they wanted this as much as the cadets did. Maybe they wanted to see her break. The combat ring activated, a wide circle of shimmering energy forming around them. The reptilian raised his claws, his muscles rippling. Behind him, 2 others joined. One with heavy horns curling from his head, another with long, bladed arms. It was not a fair fight. 3 against 1. The human girl didn't flinch. She stepped into the ring, her body loose, her eyes sharp. The crowd of cadets pressed closer, waiting. The reptilian struck first, charging with the speed of a predator. His claws slashed, aimed at her chest. She moved aside at the last second, her boots sliding across the floor. The blow missed, but the air itself seemed to tremble from its force. The horned cadet attacked next, lowering his head and rushing forward. She dropped low, rolling beneath his charge. Dust kicked up as he crashed into the barrier, sparks flying. The crowd roared. Then the bladed-armed cadet came from behind, swinging both arms in deadly arcs. She spun, ducked, and weaved, every movement precise. A cut grazed her sleeve, tearing the fabric, but not her skin. Her heart was steady, her breathing calm. The seniors grew angrier. They struck faster, harder, together. But she adapted with every move. She wasn't stronger than them. She wasn't faster. But she was smarter. Every strike they made, she learned. Every mistake they repeated, she used. The reptilian lunged again. This time, she stepped into his swing, grabbing his wrist and twisting hard. He roared in pain, his claws scraping against the floor. The horned one rushed to help, but she sidestepped, letting him slam into his ally instead. Both fell in a tangled heap. The bladed cadet hissed furiously and came at her with a flurry of cuts. She ducked once, twice, then drove her elbow into his chest. The impact was small compared to his strength, but it was placed perfectly. He staggered back, gasping, his breath broken. Silence filled the ring. The 3 seniors lay defeated, groaning on the floor. The human girl stood alone, her chest rising and falling with calm rhythm. The crowd of cadets stared. No one spoke. For the first time, the whispers weren't mocking or fearful. They were stunned. She looked at the fallen seniors, then raised her eyes to the rest. "Survival," she said quietly, "is not weakness. Survival is the beginning of strength." From the observation tower, the instructors exchanged looks. One of them whispered, "She learns too quickly." Another nodded. "And she fights like her world taught her, using everything, wasting nothing." The scanner's hidden report updated automatically, recording every heartbeat, every movement. Once again, the numbers refused to match any model. It declared her survival impossible, yet she kept winning. The Academy had wanted to see her fail. Instead, they saw something else. The cadets left the yard in silence, but a new weight followed her now. Not just fear, not just curiosity, respect. Still, in the corners of the Academy, some cadets whispered darker thoughts. If she could defeat seniors on her first week, what would she become by the end of training? The human girl walked away, her back straight, her eyes calm. Inside, her heart whispered the same truth Earth had always taught her. Adapt, endure, overcome. The challenge was over, but the real test was only beginning. The Academy buzzed like a hive after the fight. Cadets whispered in every corridor, their voices filled with a strange mix of fear and admiration. Some couldn't believe she had beaten 3 senior cadets at once. Others whispered that the instructors had planned it, that it was all part of a larger test. But one question burned brighter than the rest. What truly made the Earth cadet so different? That night, the answer began to spread. In the high tower, the instructors gathered again. The scanner had compiled another report, thicker, heavier than before. Every heartbeat, every movement during combat had been recorded. The data pulsed in red and gold across the screens, impossible to ignore. The old instructor leaned forward, his voice slow and careful. Her physiology, it does not match survival norms. Look here. Impact tolerance is 3 times higher than the reptilian species. Oxygen efficiency is double the aquatic breeds. Even under vacuum, her cells resist collapse. The gray-furred one growled low. Her world forged her differently. Earth is not just a homeworld. It is a crucible. The crest-headed officer slammed a clawed hand on the table. This is dangerous. If the cadets discover the truth, fear will spread. She should not be here. She should not exist in this program. But it was already too late. By morning, rumors raced faster than fire. Someone had leaked the files. Fragments of the hidden report appeared on handheld screens, passed from one cadet to another. Charts, numbers, lines of text. Most didn't understand the science, but the meaning was clear. The words echoed everywhere. Earth, classified Deathworld. The hallways buzzed. Deathworld. A word that carried weight heavier than any insult. Worlds so hostile that life barely clung to existence. Places filled with endless storms, violent predators, and diseases that could kill in moments. To most cadets, Deathworlds were distant myths, warnings told by teachers. Now one of those myths had walked into their academy, breathing, fighting, winning. In the mess hall, all eyes turned to the human girl when she entered. Some leaned back, as if distance could protect them. Others stared at her with awe, like she was a living legend. The word rolled across the room again and again. Deathworlder. A small insectoid cadet whispered to his group. Her kind shouldn't reach adulthood. A scaled one hissed. If she can live through Earth, she can live through anything. And somewhere at the back, a nervous voice added, Then what chance do we have against her? The human girl carried her tray of food as if none of it touched her. She had learned on Earth that whispers never stopped. They only changed their shape. She sat alone again, but this time, the silence around her was thicker. Later, during weapons training, the tension boiled over. A cadet from a proud warrior species marched up to her, his voice sharp with anger. Is it true? Are you from a death world? The whole room froze. The human girl looked at him steadily. Yes, she said simply. The cadet's face twisted between disbelief and rage. Then you should not be alive, he shouted. The instructor barked at him to stand down, but the damage was done. Every cadet in the room heard her answer. It was no longer a rumor. It was truth. In the tower above, the instructors debated endlessly. She is proof, one said, eyes narrowed. Proof that Deathworlders are real. She is a threat, another countered. If her kind spreads through the Union, what will happen to balance of power? The older instructor's voice was calm, almost grim. She is not a threat. She is a warning. We built this academy to train the best of every world. But Earth trained her long before she arrived here. The council fell into silence, none daring to disagree. That night, the girl stood alone in the courtyard. The stars stretched above her, sharp and cold. She thought of Earth, the roaring storms, the endless dangers, the way her people had always learned to adapt or perish. She thought of her mother's words, spoken when she was a child. On Earth, life does not ask permission. It fights. It survives. Her heartbeat echoed steady in her chest. The scanner could call it impossible, the cadets could call it unnatural, the instructors could call it dangerous. But she knew the truth. It was not a curse. It was not an error. It was survival written into her very blood. And now the academy knew it too. The next day, she entered the training yard again. This time, no one whispered. No one laughed. Cadets moved aside, not out of mockery, but out of respect. Some looked at her with awe, others with quiet fear, but none ignored her. The reptilian senior she had fought bowed his head slightly when she passed. Even his pride had bent before her. For the first time, the academy looked at her not as a mistake, but as something more. Something that did not fit their rules but could not be denied. The revelation was complete. She was an Earth cadet, a Deathworlder, alive when no machine believed she should be. And deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning. The revelation had spread across every corner of the academy. No one doubted it